I will read the Bible verse, chapter 26, 18 through 28. He replied, "Go into the city to a certain man and tell him, 'The teacher says, my appointed time is near. I am going to celebrate the Passover with my disciples at your house.' So the disciples did as Jesus had directed them and prepared the Passover. When evening came, Jesus was reclining at the table with the 12. While they were eating, he said, 'Truly I tell you, one of you will betray me.' They were very sad and began to say to him, one after the other, 'Surely you don't mean me, Lord.' Jesus replied, 'The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man will go just as it is written about him. But woe to that man who betrayed the Son of Man. It would be better for him if he had not been born.' Then Judas, the one who would betray him, said, 'Surely you don't mean me, Rabbi.' Jesus answered, 'You have said so.' While they were eating, Jesus took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and gave it to his disciples, saying, 'Take and eat, this is my body.' Then he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, 'Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins.'" Hey guys, last week we talked about Jesus who entered the Jerusalem riding on the donkey. Do you guys remember why Jesus entered to Jerusalem? To die on the cross. Today's word happened just 2 days before Jesus died on the cross. It's about Last Supper. Shall we look at today's word together? Jesus told his disciples to prepare for this day, to celebrate the Passover. So Jesus and his 12 disciples had dinner together. They were all sitting together at the big table eating Passover food. At that time, Jesus said, "Truly I tell you, one of you will betray me." That said, one of 12 disciples would betray Jesus and sell him. When the disciples were surprised to hear this, they began to worry about who gonna betray Jesus. Then disciples asked Jesus one by one, "Surely you don't mean me, Lord?" Then Jesus answered to them, "The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me." Just then, one of the 12 disciples who would betray Jesus spoke to Jesus.
"Surely you don't mean me, Rabbi."
This man's name was Judas Iscariot. Shamelessly, Judas had already decided to betray Jesus. When Judas asked Jesus like this, Jesus answered to him, "You have said so." After saying this, Jesus took the bread from the food and blessed it and broke the bread to the disciples. Jesus said, "Take and eat, this is my body." Then he took a cup of wine, and when he had given thanks again, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins." Jesus gave bread and wine to his disciples, and they ate it. At the time, Judas Iscariot went outside to betray Jesus. Guys, what did you think when you guys listened to today's word? Even though Jesus knew that Judas would betray him, what did Jesus want to tell his disciples through the Last Supper? Let's think about it together while you're listening. Do you guys remember what the disciples called Jesus when Jesus said, "One of you will betray me"? Except for Judas, Jesus was called Lord. By the way, do you know what Judas Iscariot called Jesus? He said, "Surely you don't mean me, Rabbi." Rabbi means a teacher. In the Bible, Judas Iscariot never called Jesus as Lord, but he always called Jesus as Rabbi. In other words, Judas thought Jesus was just one of many teachers. Judas eventually betrayed Jesus because Jesus was not the Messiah he thought, and because he was not the Messiah who would fulfill Judas' dream. Judas Iscariot was a bad man who betrayed Jesus and sold Jesus to the high priests. But there is one thing we have to remember. In fact, did you know that all rest of the disciples were so scared when Jesus was captured? Everyone abandoned Jesus and ran away? Let me read the Bible verse quickly. Mark chapter 14 verse 50 says, "Then, when Jesus was captured, everyone deserted him and fled." It means that all disciples left Jesus and ran away when he was captured. Among them, Peter, who was called the greatest disciples of Jesus, claimed that he did not know Jesus 3 times. Of course, other disciples, except Judas, were forgiven by Jesus after his resurrection. Like I said, let's think about it together. What today's message tells about us. Jesus gave his disciples bread and wine before they all betrayed Jesus. Nevertheless, Jesus knew that his promises would surely come true. All the disciples did not keep their promises with Jesus and sold him or abandoned Jesus and ran away, all of them. But what about Jesus? Did Jesus fail to keep his promises with his disciples? The disciples' promises were broken, but God's plan did not. As promised, Jesus Christ died on the cross and resurrected after 3 days later, keeping God's promise. In other words, Jesus shared bread and wine with his disciples, saying that he would keep his promises by using even disciples fail. Guys, we cannot be saved by our strength because we are so fragile and weak. If the disciples who had ate and drank with Jesus for 3 years also betrayed and abandoned Jesus and ran away, could we not run away? Are you sure? But please remember, because Jesus knew that we cannot make it, Jesus came to this earth to fulfill God's promises. That's why Jesus came down to here and died and resurrected from the dead. Only through Jesus Christ, who can keep God's promises, can we be saved. Hold on to him. Call on him. Then we will be saved. 자, 11월 마지막 주 5번째 주 액티비티 준비물을 꺼내주시기를 바랍니다. 보시면 건빵들과 포도 모양의 젤리가 들어있을 겁니다. 오늘 액티비티는 다른 것이 없고 부모님과 함께 빵과 포도 젤리를 먹으면서 예수님의 성만찬을 되새기는 묵상하는 시간을 갖도록 하겠습니다.
아들아, 이거는 그냥 깎아가 아니야. 물론 깎았을 하지만 이번에는 달의 의미를 함께 생각하면서 먹을 거예요.
아벨이가 그 빵 까까를 먹으면서 예수님이 십자가에 달리신 것을 생각하면서 아벨이를 위해 돌아가신 예수님을 생각하면서 건빵을 먹고 저 포도 젤리를 먹으면서 아벨이와 엄마 아빠와 믿는 모든 사람들을 위해 흘리신 예수님의 피를 생각하면서 포도와 빵을 먹으시길 바랍니다. 아벨아, 오늘 말씀에서 예수님이 빵을 나눠주시면서 이것이 나의 몸이라고 하셨죠? 예수님이 십자가에 달리시면서 아벨이와 믿는 모든 사람들의 죄를 사하시기 위해서 죽으셨어요. 그래서 아벨이가 이 빵을 먹을 때마다 예수님을 생각하셔야 돼요. 알겠어요?
네.
그리고 이 포도를 먹을 때마다 예수님께서 흘리신 피를 생각하세요.
네.
맛있게 드세요. 아벨아, 기도하자. 하나님 아버지 감사합니다. 예수 그리스도를 통하여서 저희의 죄를 사하여 주심에 감사드립니다. 저희가 예수님이 말씀하신 빵과 포도주를 먹으면서 예수님의 몸과 그 흘리신 피를 기억하라고 말씀하신 것처럼 저희가 오직 예수 그리스도로만 말미암아 살아갈 수 있음을 기억하게 도와주시옵소서. 예수님의 이름으로 기도드렸습니다. 아멘.